The Galactic Empire was shocked. Humanity wiped out the enemy fleet. Its fleets numbered in the millions of ships, each designed to destroy entire worlds if commanded. The Empire's leaders, tall, imposing, multi-limbed creatures with intelligence beyond human comprehension, considered themselves the rulers of everything that moved in the void. They had faced rebellions, alien invaders, and internal treachery, but nothing could touch them for long. Yet, at the edge of their immense territory, in a forgotten sector filled with lifeless rocks and ice fields, humans eked out a living. They were scattered, small in number, and seen by most aliens as primitive creatures. Humans had no massive ships, no advanced weapons that could match the Empire's armadas. They survived because they adapted. Every human settlement was a testament to creativity under pressure, a fortress built from scraps, ingenuity, and stubborn willpower. The Empire rarely noticed them, and that was exactly how humans liked it. On the rocky planet of Urindor, a small human colony lay tucked into the shadow of a jagged mountain range. Domes of metal and glass reflected the faint glow of distant suns. Smoke rose from small refineries, where humans converted minerals into usable resources. Children played among the rocks, unaware of the vast war brewing in the stars. Adults worked tirelessly, repairing ships, tending to crops, or scanning the skies for trouble. Among them was Captain Mara Klein, a woman in her early 30s with a sharp mind and sharper instincts. She walked through the crowded hangar, inspecting ships and crews. Despite the simplicity of their fleet, she could make it function like a true fighting force. "Report," she said to her second-in-command, Lieutenant Davin, a young man who had never been far from the colony but had a mind like a strategist's chessboard. "Sensors picked up strange movement in the sector, Captain," Davin said, pointing at a holographic star map. "Several unidentified ships, they're fast and they're firing on Imperial outposts." Mara leaned closer. The red dots on the map blinked in an organized pattern. "Enemy fleet?" she asked. Davin nodded. "We don't know who they are yet. But they're taking out Imperial patrols like they're toys." Mara's eyes narrowed. The Galactic Empire was supposed to be invincible. If even small enemy forces could destroy their ships, the galaxy was about to change. Humans were not the largest force in the sector, but their minds could solve problems that machines or brute force could not. She looked around at the hangar, at her crew repairing engines and loading supplies. "Prepare for anything," she said. "We might be next." Far from Urindor, in the heart of the Empire, panic was spreading. High Counselor Viren, a multi-limbed alien with eyes that could see ultraviolet light, paced the floor of his command chamber. Screens showed fleets destroyed, stations reduced to wreckage, and communication lines severed. The Empire had faced enemies before, but never like this. "They move too fast. Their attack patterns unpredictable," Viren said, his voice shaking with rare fear. "How can they strike every sector without being detected?" Admiral Harlan, his trusted fleet commander, bowed. "They must have intelligence beyond anything we know. They are ghosts, my lord." Viren slammed his clawed hand onto the table. "Ghosts? This is war. Ghosts cannot destroy millions of ships. We are the Empire. Nothing can touch us. Mobilize the Armada." "Mobilized, sir," Harlan said, but even he could not hide the doubt in his voice. The Empire had grown complacent. They had grown arrogant. And humans, quietly watching from the edge of the galaxy, had noticed something the aliens had forgotten. Overconfidence is a weakness. Back on Urindor, humans were making plans. Mara called a meeting in the central dome. Around the table sat engineers, pilots, and scientists, all experts at making the impossible work. "Listen carefully," Mara began. "We are not the largest fleet out here. We are not the strongest, but we are human. That gives us an advantage." "What advantage?" asked one engineer, a wiry man named Joran. "Imagination, adaptability, courage," Mara said. "The Empire thinks they can ignore us. The enemy thinks they can destroy us. Both are wrong. We survive because we can think differently, because we will take risks others will not, and we will act while they hesitate. Davin pointed at the star map. Sensors show enemy ships moving toward the outer colonies. If they continue, they'll reach us in 3 standard rotations. 3 rotations, Mara repeated. That's not much time. We'll need decoys, traps, and unconventional weapons. We'll retrofit old ships, improvise defenses, and strike where they least expect it. Every human here has a role to play. If we fail together. If we succeed, the galaxy will notice us. There was a moment of silence. Then the crew nodded. Humans had a peculiar way of inspiring each other. Even the most hopeless situations became challenges to overcome. Meanwhile, deep in uncharted space, the enemy fleet advanced. They were massive, heavily armed, and silent. Their ships moved like predators, cutting through the void with surgical precision. But they had never encountered humans. They had never faced creatures who could take scraps and make weapons, who could think 3 moves ahead, who could turn desperation into advantage. The humans of Urandor watched the enemy approach. Mara led a small scouting team aboard an old transport vessel, cloaked in electromagnetic shadows. They moved through asteroid fields, dodging sensors and probes, studying the enemy. "What do you see?" asked Davin, peering at the enemy ships through a high-resolution lens. "They are organized but rigid," Mara said. "Their formation is perfect, but it doesn't change. They are predictable if you know what to look for. That is our opening." "Opening?" Joran asked. "An opportunity," Mara said. "We strike differently. We fight in ways they cannot anticipate. They may have numbers, but we have brains and courage. That is human strength." For hours they observed, calculated, and planned. Every crew member contributed. Even the youngest cadets suggested ideas, some reckless, some brilliant. Mara smiled. "Every idea matters," she said. "In this fight, imagination can be just as lethal as firepower." The first contact came suddenly. A small enemy scouting ship slipped past the outer defenses and entered Urandor's space. Mara's team was ready. "Target acquired," she said. "Prepare the trap." Using modified energy pulses, decoy drones, and magnetic anomalies in the nearby asteroid belt, humans created an illusion. The enemy saw a fleet far larger than reality. Mara directed the trap personally, weaving the ship through dangerous asteroid corridors. The enemy fired. Missiles detonated against holographic decoys. Their sensors were confused. Their main ship collided with a rogue asteroid. Within minutes, the human team had destroyed the scout ship with minimal risk. "First victory," Davin said, his voice barely containing excitement. Mara shook her head. "Small victory, but proof that we can fight them." Across the galaxy, sensors in the Empire picked up the scout ship's destruction. Admirals whispered in disbelief. "Humans? Did humans do this?" Even the High Council began to doubt. The smallest species, dismissed for centuries, had managed to destroy part of the enemy fleet. Back on Urandor, Mara addressed her crew. "The Empire may not help us. In fact, they may not notice us at all. But we will not wait for permission. We will prepare our fleet, however small, and strike the enemy where they think humans cannot reach." Engineers raced to retrofit cargo ships into warships. Scientists developed energy pulses that could disable enemy shields. Pilots practiced maneuvers that no Imperial manual could teach. Every human, from the youngest apprentice to the oldest veteran, worked tirelessly. At night, as the twin moons rose over the mountains, Mara walked alone along the cliffs, looking at the stars. She felt the weight of what was coming. The enemy fleet was vast. The Empire was watching, unsure. Humanity was small. Yet she felt something powerful, hope. And more than hope, determination. Somewhere in the dark reaches of the galaxy, enemies were preparing to strike. They believed they would crush humans without effort. They did not know that humans never gave up, never surrendered, and never accepted defeat. and that ignorance would be their first mistake. In the hangar, the ships gleamed under the artificial lights. They were old, patched, and battered, but they were ready, and so were the humans. For the first time, the galaxy's edge, the place the Empire had ignored for centuries, would make its mark. The humans of Urindor, small but determined, were about to challenge the impossible. A quiet alarm sounded. Sensors had detected movement, a shadow across the stars. The enemy fleet had found them. Mara gripped the railing of the bridge, eyes burning with resolve. "Prepare for battle," she said. "The galaxy will soon learn what humans can do." And as the enemy fleet loomed, unaware of the cunning and courage of its prey, the first part of humanity's legendary fight began. The enemy fleet filled the void like a black storm. Its massive ships, gleaming with dark metal and alien symbols, moved with deadly precision. Thousands of vessels, each capable of crushing entire planets, were now heading straight for Urindor. Their sensors had picked up human activity in the outer sector, and they assumed that eliminating this small, primitive species would be an easy task. They were wrong. Captain Mara Klein stood on the bridge of the largest human ship, Valor's Edge. Around her, crews moved with calm efficiency, despite the gravity of what was about to happen. This was no longer reconnaissance or small skirmishes. The enemy fleet was vast, but humans had something far more dangerous than numbers: creativity, courage, and the willingness to fight in ways the aliens could not predict. "Status," Mara said, her voice steady. Lieutenant Davin stepped forward. "All ships are ready. Decoy drones are deployed in the surrounding asteroid field. Energy pulse cannons are charged. We have mapped the enemy fleet's formation. Their patterns are repetitive, predictable if we use the right strategy." Mara nodded. "Good. Remember, this is not a standard battle. They expect fear. They expect hesitation. We give them none of that. Every ship acts independently, but we strike as one mind. That is human strength." In the enemy command ship, the alien commander, a tall being with 6 arms and reflective black eyes, studied his sensors. "They are preparing something," he said. "Their fleet is small, but their movements, unusual. Intercept their outlying ships. We cannot allow them to reach the central sectors." He did not understand that humans thrived on being underestimated. Small fleets were easier to hide. Weak ships could be traps. The humans' unpredictability was their greatest weapon. The first wave of attack began in the asteroid belt near Urindor. Human ships darted between jagged rocks, using the terrain to hide. Decoy drones mimicked the appearance of warships, drawing enemy fire. Enemy missiles exploded against harmless holograms. "Take them through the narrow corridor," Mara commanded. "We'll lead them into the trap," the enemy pursued, overconfident. They believed their numbers made them unstoppable, but humans had anticipated their arrogance. As the enemy fleet entered the narrow passage between 2 massive asteroids, Mara triggered the magnetic mines hidden along the walls. Explosions rocked the void, tearing through enemy ships. Several vessels collided with asteroids, their hulls crumpling like paper. "First blood," Davin muttered, barely containing a smile. The humans pressed on, moving with precision. Small boarding teams, using stealth pods, jumped onto enemy vessels. Engineers and soldiers sabotaged power cores, disabled weapons, and hacked navigation systems. Within minutes, multiple enemy ships were out of commission, not destroyed by firepower, but by brains and daring. Back on the enemy flagship, the commander's eyes widened. "Impossible, they should not be able to do this. They are primitive, they should be weak." "Perhaps we underestimated them," a junior officer said nervously. "They are different. Different. They are not to be considered different, they are insignificant," the commander shouted. But even as he spoke, another wave of explosions rocked the fleet. Human ingenuity was unstoppable. Meanwhile, Mara had a bigger plan. The humans had discovered a flaw in the enemy's formation. Their communication system relied on a single network of subspace signals. If disrupted, the fleet would become disorganized, and their attack efficiency would drop dramatically. "Prepare the subspace jammer," Mara ordered. "We hit them where it hurts the most." Engineers scrambled, retrofitting old satellite relays into a makeshift but powerful jammer. When activated, it sent bursts of interference across the enemy network. Ships began to move erratically. Missiles fired in wrong directions. The enemy's massive fleet, once a symbol of invincibility, fell into chaos. "Now!" Mara shouted. Human ships surged forward, attacking with precision. Small squadrons exploited the chaos, striking from unexpected angles. The enemy tried to regroup, but humans had learned their patterns. Every move the aliens made, humans anticipated 2 steps ahead. The Galactic Empire watched from afar, unable to believe what they were seeing. Admiral Harlan, commanding a nearby Imperial fleet, shook his head. How can a human fleet do this? They are outnumbered 10-1. High Counselor Viren's multi-limbed form trembled. Impossible. Humans were weak, insignificant, and yet they are fighting like gods. Even some younger Empire officers began to murmur doubts. Humans were not just surviving, they were dominating, and each victory made their reputation grow. The whispers spread. Humans are unpredictable, dangerous. Perhaps we judged them wrong. As the battle raged, Mara turned her attention to the enemy flagship. It was the largest ship, heavily armored, and the control center of the enemy fleet. If they could take it down, the remaining forces would scatter. Davin approached her. "It's heavily shielded. We can't breach it directly." "Then we do it indirectly," Mara said. She had already planned a daring move. Using stealth pods, human teams infiltrated the flagship from the sides, where enemy sensors were weakest. Engineers planted explosive charges and scrambled the ship systems. Within minutes, alarms blared across the enemy fleet. The flagship, the symbol of their strength, erupted in fire. The shockwave rippled through the fleet. Confused ships collided, weapons fired at allies by mistake, and morale plummeted. Humanity's small fleet, though battered, moved with unmatched coordination, exploiting every error. In the aftermath of the flagship's destruction, the enemy fleet began to retreat. Mara watched as alien ships fled toward distant sectors, realizing too late that their overconfidence had been their downfall. Humans did not chase them. They did not need to. Victory was already theirs. The Imperial observers watching through distant sensors were stunned into silence. Viren's voice, usually so commanding, was now almost a whisper. How did they do this? They are small, weak, yet they destroyed the enemy fleet." Admiral Harlan shook his head. "Humans, they are extraordinary." Back on Erendor, humans celebrated quietly. There were no parades, no grand speeches. Survival and victory were enough. Mara walked among her crews, smiling at tired but happy faces. Every person had played a role, every mind had contributed, and every act of courage mattered. "Humans are something else," said Joran, watching a holographic replay of the battle. "They don't just fight, they think." Mara smiled. "Exactly, that is why we win. Not because we are the biggest, not because we have the strongest weapons, but because we do not give up, because we are human." But even in victory, Mara knew the war was far from over. The enemy fleet might return, and the Empire would not forget what humans had done. They had made their mark. They had proven that size and numbers were not the only measures of power. Intelligence, courage, and adaptability could turn even the smallest force into a galaxy-changing one, and the humans of Erendor were just getting started. The following days were spent repairing ships, analyzing enemy tactics, and preparing for the inevitable retaliation. Every victory taught humans more about their opponents. Every success strengthened their resolve. Mara knew that the galaxy had underestimated humans for centuries, and that mistake had cost the enemy dearly. Across the stars, Imperial officers and alien leaders whispered in fear and awe. If humans can do this on their own, what will they do with the Empire's attention? In the quiet of the hangar, Mara stood before her crew one last time before they dispersed to their duties. "We have shown them what humanity can do," she said. "But we must remain ready. This is only the beginning. The galaxy will test us, push us to our limits. And we will rise every time." The humans nodded. They were tired, yes. Injured, yes. But unbroken. Each one understood that the impossible was just a challenge waiting to be solved. And if the galaxy had learned one lesson, it was this: never underestimate humans. The stars outside the dome shimmered, indifferent to victories or losses. But humans, small and resilient, were changing the galaxy in ways no one had expected. They had struck fear into the enemy fleet. They had shocked the Empire. And most importantly, they had proven that human courage and ingenuity were forces that no technology could contain. Mara looked to the horizon. Somewhere out there, the enemy would regroup, and the Empire would act. But the humans of Erendor were ready. And when the next battle came, the galaxy would witness the full extent of human power. Because humans did not fight for glory. Humans fought for survival, for home, for each other. And in the cold, vast emptiness of space, that was a power no one could match. The stars burned cold and distant as Mara Klein stood on the bridge of the Valor's Edge, watching the aftermath of the first human victories. The enemy fleet had retreated in chaos, leaving scorched wrecks behind. Humans had achieved the impossible. They had struck fear into both the enemy and the Galactic Empire. Yet Mara knew this was only the beginning. The enemy would return. The Empire would act. And humans would face challenges far greater than any asteroid ambush or decoy trap. But humans had a gift the galaxy did not yet fully understand. They adapted. In the weeks following the first skirmish, Erendor became a hub of human ingenuity. Engineers worked day and night, retrofitting cargo ships into sleek strike vessels. Scientists created energy pulse weapons that could temporarily disable entire fleets. Pilots trained relentlessly, practicing maneuvers that no alien manual had ever imagined. Even the youngest cadets had roles to play. They monitored sensors, controlled decoy drones, and ran calculations that allowed human fleets to move like a single organism. Humans, small and underestimated, were turning into a force the galaxy had never seen. Mara convened her command team in the central dome. "The enemy will regroup," she said. "And when they do, they will not expect us to strike first. We must hit them before they recover, before the Empire can intervene. We will fight smarter, faster, and harder than they ever imagined." Lieutenant Davin leaned over a holographic map. "We have tracked their retreat. They are consolidating near the Perix sector. Their main fleet is damaged, but still massive. If we strike carefully, we can cripple them completely." Mara's eyes burned with determination. "Then that is what we do. Every human here has survived impossible odds before. We will survive again, and we will make history doing it." Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the Galactic Empire could no longer ignore humanity. Imperial fleets were ordered to monitor Erendor, but commanders were baffled. "They are small, insignificant," said one officer, pacing the bridge of a massive warship. "And yet their victories are undeniable." High Counselor Viren, usually calm and commanding, looked upon the human activity with something he had never experienced before: uncertainty. "Perhaps we underestimated them," he muttered. "Perhaps humans are different. Different." The word spread through the Empire like wildfire. Aliens whispered fearfully, realizing that humanity was unpredictable, daring, and capable of feats they had never considered. The time came for humans to take the offensive. Mara led a fleet of 60 retrofitted ships, barely more than a handful compared to the enemy's hundreds. But she had a plan. Using what humans did best: strategy, deception, and courage, she intended to strike directly at the enemy's central fleet and end the threat once and for all. The Valor's Edge led the way, cloaked in electromagnetic shadows. Human squadrons darted between asteroids and gas clouds, undetectable to the enemy. Mara's plan relied not on raw firepower but on intelligence, speed, and unpredictability. "Remember," she told her fleet, "they have numbers, we have brains, we have courage. Every move counts. Strike with precision, strike with heart, and above all, strike like humans." The enemy fleet, unaware of the humans' approach, maintained their standard formation, believing themselves safe in their strength. They had no idea that every step they had predicted was already anticipated by humans. As Mara's fleet entered striking range, she triggered the first stage of the plan. Decoy ships created multiple false targets. Enemy weapons fired wildly, destroying their own drones and some damaged ships. Chaos began to ripple through the ranks. Then the humans struck. Small strike teams, using stealth pods, boarded enemy ships. Engineers sabotaged weapon systems. Pilots executed maneuvers that no alien training manual had ever imagined, weaving between enemy ships like threads in a tapestry. Within minutes, the enemy flagship, command center of the fleet, was under attack. Mara had reserved her boldest strategy for this moment. She led a boarding team herself, infiltrating the ship through a weakly defended docking bay. Inside the enemy flagship, alarms blared. Alien commanders shouted orders, but their systems were failing. Human engineers had already jammed communications, and the invaders' carefully coordinated fleet began falling apart. The battle reached its climax when Mara's team breached the central control room. Using compact but powerful explosives, they disabled the flagship's engines and weapons. The flagship erupted in fire and the blast wave sent shockwaves across the enemy fleet. Ships collided. Weapons misfired. Their order dissolved into chaos. From orbit, humans watched the enemy flee. Mara's fleet, battered but victorious, had achieved the impossible. The enemy fleet was annihilated. For the first time in history, humans had not only survived against overwhelming odds, they had decisively won. The Empire's response was immediate. Imperial fleets that had once ignored humans now approached cautiously, scanning for signs of a larger threat. High Counselor Viren stared at the reports with disbelief. They did it," he whispered. "A small human fleet has destroyed the enemy. Entire fleets gone." "How?" Admiral Harlan shook his head. "They are not like anything we have seen, sir. Humans, they think differently, they take risks. They innovate, they adapt." The whispers spread across the Empire. Humans are a force to be reckoned with. Perhaps they are the future of this galaxy. Back on Erendor, humans celebrated quietly. There were no grand parades or speeches. Victory was its own reward. Mara walked through the hangar, observing crews repairing ships, laughing at small jokes and sharing stories of the battle. Every person had played a role. Every mind had contributed. Every act of courage had mattered. Joran approached Mara, shaking his head in amazement. "Captain, they were huge, unstoppable, and you know we destroyed them." "How?" Mara smiled. "Because we are human, because we survive when others would give up, because we think when others act blindly. We are not the biggest, not the strongest. But we are clever, brave, and persistent. That is why we win." Even as the humans repaired and prepared, the galaxy took notice. Aliens began to rethink their assumptions. Traders whispered stories of human courage. Scholars debated whether humans were the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Some feared them. Some admired them. All respected them. On the Imperial command stations, officers argued. "We must ally with humans," said one, "or at least study them. They are capable of more than we imagined." Viren's voice was stern, tinged with awe. "Humans have rewritten the rules of power. We ignored them for centuries. That was our mistake." In the quiet aftermath, Mara looked out at the stars. The galaxy was vast, full of dangers, threats, and unknown civilizations. But humanity had made its mark. They had shown that courage, intelligence, and adaptability could overcome even the most overwhelming odds. The enemy fleet had been destroyed. The Empire had been shocked. Humans had proven themselves not just as survivors but as a species capable of shaping the galaxy. Mara turned to her crew. "We have shown them what humanity can do, but we cannot stop. Others will come. The galaxy is full of challenges, and humans, we do not back down." The crew nodded, understanding fully. They were small, underestimated, but unstoppable in spirit. And for the first time, the galaxy understood the truth humans had always known: never underestimate a human. The final moments of Part 3 focused on the human fleets returning home. Ships, battered and scorched, glided through space, carrying stories of triumph. Children on Urandor gazed at the returning ships, imagining themselves in the battles, inspired by courage beyond their years. Mara stood on the bridge of the Valor's Edge, looking to the horizon of stars. "This is only the beginning," she said quietly. "The galaxy may fear us now, but we fight not for fear or glory. We fight for survival, for home, for each other. And that is a power no one can defeat." The stars shimmered above. Aliens and humans alike would remember this day forever. Humans, small and underestimated, had rewritten history. They had wiped out the enemy fleet, shocked the Galactic Empire, and proven the ultimate truth: humanity was not to be ignored. And in that truth lay the beginning of a new era, one where humans would rise, unbowed and unstoppable, across the galaxy.